Quick reminder, yesterday you were looking at just the basics, a basic overview of plants and the types of plants that are out there. So just in review very quickly here. Original plant-like offspring of probably protists were bryophytes, which are mosses. They do not have vasculature, and they're generally very low-lying because they can't pump water any amount of distance, so they have to be sitting very close to the ground to their water source. And they don't have any type of seed or offspring distribution system beyond pretty much just growing out from where they're currently located. Some of them reproduce through spores, very similar to fungus, actually. Then the next evolutionary iteration of plants are Teridophytes. Those are like ferns. They have very basic vasculature, so then now they do have some vessels for transporting water, so they can grow quite high. But in general, their reproductive mechanism relies on water. They can only drop their unusual sperm into the adjacent water, and then the water is the distribution system. It kind of carries it to a new location. The next evolutionary iteration of plants are gymnosperms. Gymnosperms are trees with cones, or plants with cones. And they're fairly ancient. They're something like 100 million years old. They're quite old. They have complex vasculature. They can grow extremely tall. And then they have something similar to a seed distribution system. It's not an enclosed seed like angiosperms have, but if anybody had a pine nut before? That's what a seed looks like from a gymnosperm. Then that's like a super bulky version of that. There are really thin versions of that as well, but it's not an enclosed seed. So it's obviously very open to a predator just like eating it, and it would be dissolved and digested. So they don't have predator-resistant seeds. And then the final iteration would be angiosperms, which are flowering plants, true flowering plants that produce flowers and enclosed seeds. And they typically use animals as a seed distribution system. They produce fruit. The animals carry the fruit away or digest the fruit, and then usually defecate and leave the seeds somewhere new, and that's part of the reproductive strategy for flowering plants. And they also require pollinators. Okay, so that's general evolutionary history of plants. Now flowering plants are the most common plant by far. It's something like 90% of all plants on Earth are flowering plants. So they've really done a good job of outcompeting all the different types of plants. And I think I spent a little bit of time going over photosynthesis, right? The general process, how it works, and then the structure of the leaf. Okay, you got your cuticle, lower epidermis with the holes, which are called stoma or stomata for multiples. With the guard cells on the side that open and close to allow gas exchange to happen. You got your spongy mesophyll in the middle for gas storage. Then you got your palisade mesophyll above that. That's where all the photosynthesis action happens. They're stacked really tightly together like this. And then you've got an upper epidermis that is for protection. It produces a cuticle, which is like a waxy surface on top of the leaf to protect it from predators and to shed water. I think that's pretty much everything in a super fast nutshell there. Okay, so that's what we covered yesterday. Does anybody have any questions from the homework from yesterday, or really anything that you've done so far before we move on? People at home? I mean, it's not the most super complex topic, but no? Take a second. Everyone was fine with the homework questions? All right, cool. I had a couple of people ask yesterday about collecting the homework questions. So normally, I collect the homework questions before midterm for like the first half of the course, and they're partially used to determine your learning skills. And then I collect them again at the end, but I wasn't actually here at the time before midterm, so I didn't collect it. So what I'm going to do instead is just collect it all at the end. Still keep those homework documents, so you should have one homework document for all of your questions, one per unit. and then you're just going to submit them all in one single assignment. I'll let you know when it's coming. It'll be like the very last week of class. Or for you guys, it's really broken up weird at the end. There's like it'll be on that last day. There's like a weird day that's just like away from the other days. That's the actual day where you'll submit it. It's like the very last day of class. So anyway, so that is coming, but you don't have to worry about it right now. It's not going to like suddenly appear for now. So okay, so today we're going to talk about two other key structures in plants. We're going to go through the basics of what a stem is made out of, and then the second half we're going to talk about roots. Okay. Tomorrow we're going to sort of put this stuff together and talk about transport from the roots all the way up to the leaf. So we're going to be like combining the anatomy of these different plant organs together and looking at transport in between those different organs. And we're going to be doing a flower dissection. So just a quick reminder to people at home, if you're interested in doing the flower dissection with us for Monday, so if your parents are going shopping on the weekend, have them be at the grocery store, and they can pick up a flower. A perfect flower would be ideal, but it doesn't have to be a perfect flower. So if your parents are like, I don't like lilies, I only want daisies or whatever. Daisies aren't perfect flowers, but that's fine. Well, actually, that's not true. Some of them are. But it's not as obvious in a daisy. If you get something like a lily with really obvious like structures that are coming up, it'll be easier for you to see. But anyway, we'll make do no matter what you got at home. So if you're interested, for you guys in the room, I will bring you flowers. So it's my gift to you. Happy Valentine's. Okay, where we head here? So the first thing that you're going to do for the first part here, there is a overview discussing vascular plants in general and their anatomy. Okay, some of that is review from yesterday. It's going to talk a little bit about the structure of a leaf, but it's also going to talk about roots and stems and just in general, what is the anatomy like of those things. Okay, there's a little video lesson here. I recorded this one a long time ago. This video is actually from last year. So I may make reference to due dates and stuff that don't have anything to do with this current run of the course. So just so you know, you can ignore those. It's split into two. So the first half is stems. I put the time code on there. It's up to 33:49. It goes along with the same notes package that you started yesterday. And it's just an overview of what does a stem look like, what are the different components, what's the function of the stem. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. And then I think I look at some actual pictures of stems, and then same thing for roots. Okay, something to really think about as you're going through the notes package here is one of the main thrusts of this course, or this unit specifically, is looking at the differences between gymnosperms and then between the two types of angiosperms, monocots and dicots. So I believe in the first lesson I talk about this idea of monocots and dicots. A monocotyledon has one seed leaf when it sprouts. The dicotyledon has two seed leaves when it sprouts. Was that in the previous lesson? I can't remember. If not, it's in this one. It was in the previous one. Okay, good. So a lot of the anatomy stuff is directed at what is the difference between those three, okay? Because those are by far the most common plants that you will see if you just go outside and look around, okay? Almost everything that you're going to see when you go outside is either a gymnosperm, a monocot, or a dicot. So if you've got those three, if you know the anatomy of those three, you will have a general understanding of the anatomy of almost every plant that you will encounter outside. That's kind of the purpose of it. So that's why we're focusing on those three. Hopefully, on Monday, I'm hoping the weather's going to stay warm for a little bit, we'll be able to go outside very briefly and find some examples of these. There's not going to be a lot of leafing going on plants, but there are other ways to identify a monocot and a dicot. We should be able to find at least a little bit of grasses at the very least, which are monocots. But anyway, so that's the reason we look at the differences. So, for example, when we look at the stem, when the lesson is going through the stem, it's going to say like this is a dicot or gymnosperm stem. So gymnosperm and dicot stems are basically identical. Okay, they're very, very hard to differentiate just from looking at the stem. And then the monocot stem looks totally different. So the key differences between those are what you need to know. What's the difference between a monocot and a dicot / gymnosperm in terms of their stem? okay? So it talks about like where you find certain structures in the stem and stuff like that, how things are grouped and arranged. On the quiz, that is the main focus of this stuff, is being able to identify the differences between those and understanding the function of those different structures within the stem, okay? And then the same thing goes for the roots. Monocot roots look a certain way, and dicots/gymnosperms look a different way. And so understanding the differences between those two arrangements and what the different components in the stem do is the main thrust of the lesson. Okay, that's what you need to take away from this. Okay, so once you do that, there is a analysis question section. It's the bottom of page 9 in the course notes package. You'll see it down there. It's like some questions that go along with the stem section. And then there's something similar on the bottom of page 9 again. The second part of that is some questions on roots. Okay, so that's the second component, and then there's a little exit quiz. Today is relatively content light. Okay, you may notice that. There's not as much video to watch, there's not as much questions to do, and that's because at this point in the course is normally when people start emailing me saying, I'm falling behind with my assignments because there's all of this stuff that we're doing and I don't have time to finish this stuff. I get it. So this is intentional. If you finish the content, take a moment and use some time today to finish up the stuff that you're still working on, okay? I've also had a number of people email me asking about, like, I'm having technical problems with this, whatever. It doesn't matter really what it is, and this goes for the people at home too. If you're trying to troubleshoot something like Loom or something like that to try and get it to work, use this as an opportunity to contact me, okay? And then we can work those problems out. We may have to jump into a Google Meet, but we'll get whatever your problems are figured out so you can get a recording done. Okay, if you're in the room and you need to make a recording, let's say you want to actually record your presentation and you want to step back into the lab to work in there and like have a little bit more privacy so you can talk and stuff like that, that's fine, okay? Just let me know and we'll make that available to you so you can do that. All right, if you have any questions throughout any of this, don't be afraid to ask. I haven't heard from a lot of people, which is a little bit unusual. I think it's because I haven't been here for most of it, so people aren't used to asking questions. That's fine, but don't forget I am available. All right, let me know if you need anything. Okay, for the people at home, if you wouldn't mind letting me know in the comments if you are here. I don't think we lost anybody in the room. Gain anybody? No. All right. All right. Somebody asked a question on our walk about days remaining. I just wanted to quickly show you guys the schedule so you can see what the layout of the rest of the class looks like. I don't want anybody getting confused because it's for sure weird. So, all right, we are, what's today? 12th. All right, so we're here Friday, March 12th. We have next week until Wednesday. Monday and Tuesday are going to be days for the plants unit. Tuesday, we're going to talk a little bit about sexual reproduction in plants, a little tiny bit about asexual reproduction, and you'll have time to work, at least a whole block to work on your project for the plants unit. And then on Wednesday, we're going to start our final unit, which is the evolution unit. Then there is roughly 2 weeks, and then you're going to return for 1 day on April 1st. I don't think it's an April Fool's joke. I think that's a real day, a single day. And then there is a long weekend, so the Friday and Monday are off. You have 2 days in your other course, and then cohort B, which is you guys, are going to be back in here for 2 days. And then the course is over. Well, actually, no, that's not true. Sorry, that's not correct. Then there's March break, which is technically April break. I don't know whether really attached to the word March break, but it's in April. So there's a week off. And then you come back, and then we have these 3 distance instructional support days. And then technically the course is over. So it's kind of a weird schedule at the end there. The distance instructional days, I can't remember if I mentioned this before, but in this course, we're going to do a survey, which takes 5 minutes, just to get some feedback on things that you like, did not like, you would change about the course. This is mostly for future classes, but I have already changed a number of things in this course based on what people have told me. You guys didn't really like the meditation thing. That's cool. Lots of people in the previous class wanted it, but that's it's a little bit different now because now we're doing something different than last quad question.
March break happens, and then we have 3 of those distance instructional things.
Yeah.
For the next 3 days.
Correct.
Okay.
So you'll be at home those days. Yeah. If you are complete the course, which you absolutely should be at that point, you will just have 3 days to complete a 5-minute survey. That is the only thing that you need to do. If you're really far behind, coming up into March break, then we have to start activating some emergency protocols here, and I may be communicating with you during those days, attempting to help you get the credit. I will say that in previous instances of this course, anybody who has left anything till that time, generally were not super successful in finishing the course. I had a lot of people come into these days from the previous quad thinking that they were going to finish units worth of work, which you just don't. You're not going to get them done. So please don't put yourself in that position. What I can see here, which I'm kind of a little bit concerned about, is that some people are going to look at this and go, oh, like, I guess we don't really have to have everything finished for this day. Like, we can just take this week and then we have 3 more days to finish off these assignments. Don't do that to yourself, guys. Please don't do it to me. That means I have to mark a lot of your stuff at the very last second while I'm doing your report cards, which is not ideal. I have to prepare for my next course. 2 courses actually within the next quad. Please don't do that, and don't do it to yourself either. Why not get it done? There's lots of time to get stuff done previous to this, and then you can actually enjoy your March break, where you don't have to think about schoolwork and potentially losing the credit for this course. Just don't put yourself in that position. It's not a good idea. So anyway, we obviously will chat more if you're getting into that position, but I must say, for the most part, people are doing a pretty good job with deadlines. Thank you for emailing me if you are potentially going to be handing something in late or completing something late. It's fine. Let's chat about it. I'm glad that you guys are doing that. One thing just really quickly to mention about that, I don't usually check my email after 9 p.m. So if you're sending me something at 11:42 and saying, I just was wondering if I could get a 1-day extension on this. I mean, come on, guys. I have a 4-month-old baby, okay? I'm not going to bed at 11:42. I'm going to bed at 9:30 if I can, all right? We get up through the night, and it's a party. So please don't expect a reply to that email. You can still send it, but if you're saying, can you please respond to my email? I mean, no, I'm not going to respond to that, so don't take it personally. I'm not checking my email at that time. But I will get back to you first thing the next day. Okay. So one thing I wanted to mention before I let you guys, were there any questions, by the way, from the first half? Anything? Some of you may have done both parts already, and that's totally fine if you have. No questions about stems or roots? Monocots, dicots, structure of the root, structure of the stem? Nothing. Nothing. Anybody at home? Nothing. Okay. If you think of anything, let me know. I guess it's fairly straightforward, I guess. I wanted to briefly discuss the assignment, which, you know what, if you're done everything from the previous quad and now you're done today's stuff, you can start the assignment if you wish at this point. You definitely have enough knowledge of the anatomy of plants to start the assignment at this point. So I'm going to go through it real quick now just so you know what's up. All right. So this assignment is very similar in structure, at least, to the medical technology assignment. You're going to be creating a video presentation where you're going to discuss a specific plant, and through that, you're going to be showing me some of the knowledge that you've gained about plant structures. Okay? Except this is in a more applied way, so you're going to be looking into how some of this anatomy and stuff is applying to a real species of plant out in the world that you might be interested in. So, you're going to be discussing or considering various ways in which a potential plant could be used, in which it could be culturally significant. So maybe it's used for some type of religious reason. I don't know. Could be anything. Or as a building material, or a food source, or could be a component of a pharmaceutical, a drug, or an ingredient in Aboriginal medicine, or something used for flood or erosion control, or as a source for recreation, or something that is important for ecotourism. Or you notice that there's lots of different modalities, ways in which a particular plant could be useful to society. Okay? Ideally, in order to round your presentation out and make it a little bit interesting, try and pick a plant species that is important in more than one of those ways, so you have something to talk about. Someone did a lovely presentation in another quad about roses. That's fine. But roses don't really, outside of the cultural significance of them, they don't have a huge societal use other than its cultural impact. Now that's fine. You can make a presentation out of that, but you got to do a deep dive on the cultural significance of roses. So it is possible to do it well, but it's just, if you're not looking to do that, to get super deep into the history and of the cultural significance of roses, you may want to pick something that has a diverse number of uses. I'm just going to throw corn out there as an example. Okay, you don't have to choose corn. Obviously, you can pick any plant you want, but like corn has many different potential uses for humans. Okay, so again, the purpose of this is that you're going to demonstrate some knowledge of the structures of plants. That's what we're learning about, and the functions of those structures. Secondarily here, you're going to be talking about its cultural, technological significance to humans. Okay, and those are sort of the two general things that you're demonstrating to me. And so to try and keep that in the back of your head as you're making your presentation, that's the purpose of this, is that you're showing me your understanding of plant structures, and you're showing me what you have learned about it as a, culturally significant plant. Okay, so one thing to note about the breakdowns here for the assignments is that when I say like this is a slide, it doesn't have to be one slide. It just means like this is a series of slides on this, okay, and a series of slides on this. I've noticed that some people are trying to cram a lot of textual information into one slide here because it's shown as one heading, but there's no reason to do that. Like if something would fit better on 4 slides, like just spread it out over 4. Like you can fast forward through them or as quickly or slowly as you want, right? So don't super crowd your slides with text. Way back at the beginning, and in fact I may have. I put this presentation up way at the beginning. I think I might have gone through it on the video way back on the tips for creating a good presentation. Use those, okay? For example, don't hyper-crowd your slides with tons and tons of text where you're essentially writing a script, okay? I've noticed in at least some of the medical technology presentations, just skimming them, some people have had a tendency to do that, to write a script on your slides. You don't want to do that in a presentation, because if you do that, Either people are going to exclusively read the slides and ignore you, or they're going to exclusively listen to you and ignore your slides. But either way, there's a component there that's totally useless. So the purpose of the slideshow is to augment what you are discussing. Okay, you're providing anchor words there, or anchor phrases for your presentation, but you're not writing a script on your slides. Otherwise, it's not really very functional. You want to include diagrams, pictures of things that you're talking about to enhance what you're talking about, but not necessarily a script. If you want to write a script, you are absolutely welcome to write a script. You can have that script wherever you like while you're doing the presentation, but you just don't write it on your slides. Okay, that's just generally good protocol not to do that. So something to consider. So you want a title slide. That probably just needs to be one, but you're going to describe your plant. Okay, what's its scientific and common name? What kind of plant is it? Is it a bryophyte, teridophyte, gymnosperm, monocot, dicot? Hopefully at this point you know what those things are and how to identify them, but if not, let's talk. Give me a basic diagram of your plant. You don't need to draw it. This could just be a picture that you find. And describe the unique structural features of it. So tell me a little bit, is there anything important about the leaves of this plant? Does it have thorns? Is it a certain number of leaves per cluster or whatever? Tell me a little bit about the structure of your plant and what makes it a whatever particular plant, okay? And sometimes when I say structural features, those features may be important for the use of the plant. For example, if you're doing something like bamboo, the way the stem is actually composed is important for some of the uses for bamboo. So then talk about that. Okay, so this is an opportunity for you to, tell me a little bit about, use some of your knowledge of plant anatomy when you're discussing it. Okay, what are these structures called? Tell me about the life cycle. If you're doing something like an angiosperm, for example, you don't need to find a picture of this plant's life cycle specifically, because that may be impossible. That picture might not exist anywhere, depending on which plant you choose. But you do need to describe, so if you are going to use a diagram, and you probably should, you want a blank one, something without text. You are going to provide the textual component here and discuss the various parts of the life cycle of the plant. And add some detail in there. How long does it take for it to germinate after the seeds are dropped? When do they germinate during the year? How long does it take for it to go from a seedling or a sapling to a mature plant that is ready to reproduce? That's standard information as part of a life cycle for an organism. That's what you should be discussing. Okay, so you're going to be telling me about its life cycle. Tell me about its reproduction. Does it need a pollinator? Is it wind pollinated, etc.? Okay, and you don't have to pick an angiosperm. So maybe you're picking a fern or something like that. I don't know. But then you would discuss the life cycle of a fern. Okay, so for that particular part, we are going to discuss the sexual reproductive cycle of plants in a lot more detail, especially for angiosperms, on Monday/Tuesday. So if you want to wait until then to do that part, that's totally fine. I mean, we're going to discuss it together, and you'll have more knowledge about the sexual reproduction of plants after that point. And after the flower dissection, if you're going to be discussing the parts of a flower, I mean, it might make sense to do that after there. So that slide you might not want to do right away if you're going to be starting today. And then sort of like the last element here is you're going to be discussing the significance of the plant. So how is it used? Tell me all the different ways that it could potentially be used. What part of the plant is used? Is it the root, stem, leaf, flower, etc.? Is it a particular part of the leaf, root, stem, flower? Is it the bark or the cambium or the whatever? Again, you guys are becoming familiar with the anatomy of the plant here. What parts are being used? And is there any significance between which organ is used and how it is used? Okay. For example, I think I used an example here. The ground tissue in a bamboo stem, it has a very high silica content, which makes it very resistant to termites. It's a great building material. Now, that's not the only reason it's a great building material, but that particular aspect of its anatomy, its physiology, allows it to be more useful as a building material. Talk about that. Again, we're connecting the anatomy that you've learned to the function that it's being used for. Okay? Tell me about the history of its significance. For some things, this will be more important than others, but has it changed over time? How has its use changed over time? Just tell me a little bit about that. Okay, a little bit of timeline for its use. The last thing here you need is a slide works cited. It goes at the end. Make sure you're using APA citation. If you don't know how to use APA citation, please talk to me. Okay, I'll give you a quick tutorial, but you have to use APA citation. You can't just put links for stuff. Every science course you ever take from here on out is going to ask you for APA citation, high school and beyond. So it's essential that you know how to use it. You can use Loom. You don't have to use Loom if you don't want to. I find it works well for most students. It's free, so that's a plus. You can do an infinitely long video, but other people use other services and it worked just fine. So there is a 1 gigabyte maximum for uploading to Brightspace. So if your video is bigger than that, you're going to be running into problems. You also have the ability to upload it to your YouTube account if you want, and just send me a link. You can leave it unlisted so no one else can see it. So that is an option for you as well, but like there's other ways you can do it. If you're not sure, let's chat. You've already sent some videos in, so you probably are good at this point, but there's one other thing I wanted to mention here. Oh, right, the research sheet. Right. And you guys did this for your previous project as well. So the research sheet is what you are using to write down all of the stuff that you have learned from researching, okay? You do this before you make your presentation. Some people do it the other way. They try and record on here what they've learned after they've made their presentation. That's not how this works, okay? This is a tool. The purpose of the tool is to get you in the habit of summarizing what you've read, okay? So you don't write word for word onto your research sheet what you read. You read it, you think about it, and you summarize the important points in your research sheet. Okay, it should be in point form. And the idea of this is to prevent plagiarism. It's to help you, okay? In university, when you're writing a paper, you have to do this. There's really like no way around doing this. If you're quoting things directly, your paper is gonna get flagged. Okay, it's all done automated from, at least at university, it's an automated system. But if you're copying and pasting stuff, it's gonna get flagged. You have to summarize, you have to use your own words, okay, when you're taking information from a source. And you also need to record where you got each piece of information, which is why this goes by source. So as you're going through the source, you write down everything you got from that source, and later, if a prof comes up to you and says, I've never heard of this thing before, where did you get this piece of information? I've never heard, this doesn't sound right. You should be able to say, I got it from this source. And then they can look it up and say, oh yeah, I didn't know that. But if you don't have a source, it's pretty much assumed that you made it up, okay? Really, on any research paper that you do in any academic context, if you don't have a source for information, it's assumed that it's not true or it's made up, okay? Get in that habit, especially if you plan on staying in academia, and obviously that's not gonna be everybody, but if you're planning on staying in academia, like this is an absolute essential skill. You can't write anything in something that you're going to submit for publication without having a reference for it. There's no such thing as common knowledge really in science. If you're going to say it and it's not your opinion, you're not stating it as an opinion, then you have to have a reference for it. So this is just an opportunity. We're going to do it on pretty much every assignment here on out to get in the habit of doing this properly. You will need this skill. Okay, if you're going to university, you will need this skill, absolutely. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. I did take a look at some of these from the last project that was submitted, the medical technology assignment, and they were done to various degrees of skill. The major problem is that people are not summarizing in them. It looks like a lot of people are just copying and pasting information directly, which defeats the entire purpose of the research document. So just something to keep in mind while you're doing it. You're supposed to be synthesizing what you're reading, going through and thinking about it and saying, oh, this is the key piece of information here, or these are the important points, and then that's what you're putting in your research document, not word for word. Okay, I think that's everything I wanted to say about this project. Does anybody have any questions before I just send you on your way to work on the rest of the content? Anybody at home? I'm not going anywhere, so if you need anything, just let me know. Question?
Do you need the research to be done on the one that you provided, or?
That sheet?
Yeah.
No, but it should be formatted like that. Source.
You want it like organized like that? Or?
Yes, that's the purpose of it. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't have to be that exact sheet, but that way of organizing it. Yes. Okay. Let me know if you need anything, guys. That assignment will be due Wednesday at midnight of next week. Okay. Ideally, you wouldn't want to push it too much past that because you'd be getting into your other course and stuff. But anyway, that's where it is.